Hello, Yousif.
Hey, how are we going?
Good, good. How are you doing?
Really well, thanks. Really well. Like I've had a really long day today, so this is a nice welcome relief to talk about stuff and just have a chill chat with you, man. It's
Cool,
great
cool.
to see you.
Yeah, it is great to see you. For those who don't know, Yousif and I met almost 2 years ago in Korea, which was quite an experience, and we'll speak about that later on. But before we get into all of that, if you can just give a quick background about yourself, who you are, what you do, where you're from, where you're based, and the whole everything, the whole story of Yousif so far.
Wow, the whole story of Yusuf. Yeah, okay, well, I'll try and condense it. A very, very brief story of my life up until this point. So, born and raised in London to Middle Eastern parents. Dropped out of university in the first year because I hated it. Went straight into the music business because I did a radio show back in university and thought, you know what, I want some of this. So this was, I thought, was the path for me. So I worked for various different indie labels, a couple of majors here and there, as well as internships. But ultimately led to me putting out my first record label, and my only record label, I should say. Put out a few records here and there. Um, After that, put on a club night in London and did DJ sets as well, throughout London and across the world. In fact, I was very fortunate to do that. So from there, in the midst of all that, I also developed a journalistic career because I'd written reviews of gigs I'd been to, and then from there, one thing led to another, and I ended up working at The Guardian for about a year, and I still freelance for a number of these national publications as well, when I've got time these days to do so. Um, yeah, I stopped within that kind of indie thread. I stopped following that thread, if you like, at a point about a decade ago because I felt so disillusioned with the industry that I wanted to kind of A, find my roots again, and B, just take a whole new different direction. And not many people get to that point in their life where, and I know it's going to sound very, very personal, but they don't look in the mirror enough and say, who are you? And that's exactly what happened with me. And for a good few years, I kind of just almost picked up the pieces from my life and just started to rebuild again, if you like, and find out who I really was. And so I began traveling and just started developing different tastes, not just musically, but just to find out who I was and what I'm all about, really. Because, you know, I'd become this two-dimensional character, but now I feel I'm so well rounded. And like now, fast forward to now, and you know, I am a copywriter and a content writer for the most part, and I got my own YouTube channel. And you know, I'm trying to put together my very first film documentary, which is pretty much finished when it comes to filming, but just putting an edit together and make sure everyone's happy with it. So I think that's everything.
Yeah,
Think that's
that's
everything.
it's quite extensive, and your experience is quite unique because I don't know many people who have had that type of, you know, I don't like that type of career where they've switched, from going in from one thing to another that seamlessly. But at the same time, you've done so much over these years. Like when you look back, and I want to just speak about your journalistic career. I mean, you've written with for the Huffington Post, for Days and Confused, for the Guardian, and it feels like it's been a really long ride for you, which is great. And I want to know what got you into writing and journalism in the first place. Was there like a tipping point or something that made you switch to go into that?
I don't know if there was a tipping point or a eureka moment where I kind of thought, yes, I've got to go to journalism. This was something I'd known since the age of 6. I'd always been good at writing. You can ask any teacher I have, I used to write these short stories, and I remember one time we were asked to write our own version of Iron Man, way before the movie was out. I'm kind of showing my age here, but so I did that, and just like writing short stories and song lyrics and poems and just jotting things down, and it just became a habit throughout my entire life that never really went away. It wasn't until I was maybe 18, 19 that I started writing about reviews for gigs that I'd been to in exchange for free tickets, that I thought, hey, I'm quite good at this. So subconsciously in my mind, that had always been there. And the more I kept writing and the more I kept practicing and the more I honed my skill set, that it just kept, it was almost a snowball effect, really, that I kept that momentum going. I never really, dulled my edge in terms of my, writing that was going on in the background of everything. So as I say, how that came to like taking it seriously, and I mean really seriously, and getting paid for it, was that I got these internships with these publications, and I built a little portfolio going with all these webzines and all these websites, and one thing led to another. I think my first like break with a really big magazine came with, I believe it was Days of Confused, and it was so funny because I remember emailing them about saying I'd like to write for them, and I didn't think much of it. And exactly 2 months later, I get a reply from the deputy editor, and all it says was, "Hi, what have you got?" That was it.
Well,
Do
you remember what you wrote about, like what it was about, or?
My first article with them after I'd pitched for what was seemingly a long time was about a folk singer called Johnny Flynn.
Okay, yeah, I know Johnny Flynn.
Yeah, apparently it was his first interview with his band, rather than being a solo artist. So I got really lucky with that one. Yeah, and then like I've had a few landmark cases where I've been, I was very lucky, and I can verify this. I was the very first person in Europe, not just the UK, to write a live review about Arcade Fire's very first show outside of Canada.
Really?
Absolutely true.
I'm a huge Arcade Fire fan, so that's a nice little fun fact for me. So that's really cool. That's really cool. So what gig was it? Where was it? How was it? What do you remember from that experience?
It was in 2005 at King's College, where there was about 500 people. It was a sellout show. They played were just as their first album, Funeral, came out, and I remember being in shock and awe of just how good they were. And today, it's probably the best concert I've ever been to.
Wow. Yeah,
I can say that without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. I was so shook afterwards that I was kind of like, what just happened? I was almost with kind of tears in my eyes. It was beautiful to watch, And I think I still, if I'm not mistaken, yes, I still have the ticket stub from that day, from that night, as proof.
That's cool.
Up on my wall. Here it is. I don't know if you can see that. If it picks up or not.
Yeah. I can see it. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm a huge fan. I mean, a couple of years ago in 2018, so 3 years ago soon, I actually traveled to Prague on my own to watch them live, and it remains one of the greatest live music experiences I've ever witnessed. So I totally know where you're coming from with that. And speaking of which, so you've written a lot about music, and you're quite well traveled. So if you could give me, like, not necessarily related to music, but a standout experience. I mean, the other day when we spoke, you showed me the $100 trillion bill from Zimbabwe and things like that. So I wanted to know, like, what's an experience that you feel when you were there, you were like, I can't believe like I'm doing this right now? Is there anything that stands out other than us jumping into a river in the DMZ and, and stuff like that?
We could talk about that later if you want.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the most surreal experiences of my life. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Probably yours as well.
Yeah, that was a crazy experience. The whole DMZ thing. I didn't jump I didn't jump off that cliff.
You didn't.
I was too scared to jump off that cliff. I don't even know how you did it. I was looking and I was like, no, I'm not having any of that. So, but it was a great memory for me. That whole thing when we were kayaking in that river.
Yeah. One thing I remember from the kayaking just quickly was just that, I'm an adrenaline junkie anyway, but it's just about pushing past that fear and getting out of comfort zones. And that's something I've been learning to do, and I just kind of just feel the fear and do it anyway, just like the book says,
Yeah, of course. So other than that DMZ
other than that,
and a standout experience, something that really stood out for you.
Something really stood out for me. Probably one of them was going to see Prince on Valentine's Day play an acoustic set to 300 people in London.
Really? When was that?
That was in 20, what year would it have been? 2014.
That's crazy.
2 years before he died, and the tickets, I remember them being really expensive, like £70, but I didn't care, Like I'd rather have that than live a life of regret, of just kind of think I never saw him live when I got the chance to.
Yeah,
that's one of them. And but you know what? There's been so many experiences. I mean, the DMZ festival was another one. Hosting a festival on the border of North Korea and doing a DJ set and going kayaking.
Yeah,
and staying in in the middle of the woods full of tigers and snakes.
Yeah, I completely forgot that, but it's true. We did stay in the middle of the woods. I forgot about that. Yeah.
The forest, man. The forest.
Yeah, it's true.
That was pretty surreal.
That was
and playing Arabic music as well, like to a Korean crowd in the rain.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's right up there.
Yeah, that is surreal. And yeah, I forgot. I don't know why that. Oh, now that's bringing back a lot of memories. It was really, really good. It was really something, that whole trip. And but yeah, I mean, so you write obviously a lot about music, but does what you write always have to do with what you listen to, or have there been jobs where you take on the job and it's music that you don't necessarily like, but you have to kind of complement it in the article that you're writing, or has that never happened?
I won't lie and say it hasn't happened before, but those occasions are quite rare because I'm in a very fortunate position where I can pick and choose what I want to write. It used to be the case where I'd go and get invited to something, but at the same time, I did it. We're not doing it for money. You're doing it for exposure, right? So we've all been there. I remember in the early days of having to see shows and bands that you're just kind of thinking, why am I doing this? Why am I here? I'd like to think of myself as not too critical, but at the same time, I can be, I can have high standards at the same time.
Okay.
People often ask me, why didn't you rate so-and-so and why didn't you rate so-and-so's albums? Because it wasn't as good as the last one, and I'll be honest about it. Yeah. I just say, to me, that's kind of how I conduct my life. I set myself to a standard. If those standards aren't reached, then I've got to be honest with it. I always got to keep it real, got to keep it 100 always. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, but in terms of bands and stuff, it kind of feels like indie is my past life, and now I'm kind of into other things, So, and so does most of the industry, because it's not even in vogue right now.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Do you think that now that, since you've worked at many events and you've attended many gigs and you've attended many festivals and you've been all over the place, so obviously you've spoken to many people who either work in the industry or artists themselves or things like that. is there something that you feel that artists, specifically emerging or independent artists, are missing? Like, is there a trick they're missing, or there's something that they're not aware of when it comes to maybe press or promoting themselves or things like that? Is there anything you would tell artists today?
Yeah, I'd go your own way. To be honest with you, it used to be a case where, you know, you need a whole team behind you, but you know, oh, we need to look for a manager, oh, we need to look for a lawyer, a booking agent, someone to handle our radio, TV, so and so and so. Those days for me, though they're still needed, you know, distribution, label, you know, for me those days are becoming obsolete, because you know, we're coming into an age where we can kind of almost do it ourselves if you're willing to put the hard work in. And you know, that's something that, you know, is very, very easily attainable and doable for me. And you know, do you need like a label to put out your stuff anymore? If you want to be a global star, then yeah, perhaps, yes. But even then, you know, look what you have at your disposal. You've got, you know, you've got Bandcamp, you've got, you know, Spotify if you want to use that. I know artists hate using it, but you know, it's there for a reason. And it's you know, it's still popular with, you know, people who kind of want something in their ears and
Yeah.
when they're out and about. But yeah, to answer your question further, I think people in bands and artists should kind of learn to kind of do things themselves. And you know, it's like that old cliche, if you build it, they'll come to you, sort of thing.
Yeah.
That's what I think ultimately.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I always say, like, you know, things like artist managers are not a necessity at the beginning, but they are a necessity later on. At the beginning, it's kind of like it's like a bit of a luxury to have a team when you're just a starting artist, because what's the leverage for the manager? Like, what's in it for them? You know, they're being asked to do so much work for the artist, and what's in it for them? At the end, you're just like, you know, it would make sense if the artist was more established or was on a trajectory that was going upward, and you could see, you know, at least some type of financial reward. And speaking of financial rewards and so on, I want you, on a completely separate note to music, to tell us more about blockchain and your interest in it, and cryptocurrencies, and basically tell us as if you were speaking to a 5-year-old who has no idea what this is about, because you seem to be really, really, really involved in it. And yeah, just tell us more about this.
You know, I'm so glad you mentioned the fact that as if you're talking to a 5-year-old, because one of my very favorite sayings is that if you can't make a 5-year-old understand it, then you don't understand it.
Yeah.
But I think my interest in crypto began when, you know, it was at the time when I was just rebuilding pieces of my life and stuff, and like a phoenix rising from the ashes. And essentially, I started to read up about financial systems and how they worked, and you know, how the mechanism of how the world really works was kind of in my consciousness, if you like. And Bitcoin was something that was mentioned here and there on by people like Max Kaiser and on Russia Today and so on. And there was this thing called the Hollywood Stock Exchange that he had invented, where you could put bets on certain films and actors doing well, in the same way that you would bet on a stock market. You could do the same thing with movies, and you could do the same things with actors as well, and not necessarily big actors, people who are emerging. And you could also crowdfund these projects as well within the said exchange. And that's where my interest came into play, thinking, hey, this is like what the internet's been waiting for. You know, we've got a platform for, you know, for retail via Amazon. We've got a platform for social media and Facebook. We've got, you know, all these instruments that we use for every day and whatnot, except a financial kind of bartering use of exchange. And that time I felt that that was the answer, you know, finally, you know, for me, like PayPal at the time, naively or not, that, it was a bit dated and people needed a better form of exchange that was outside the system. And, as we know that, these instruments of the dollar and the pound and the euro and so on are within the system, and, they decrease in value day by day. And as someone that's Lebanese yourself, you of all people will know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
So with that, this is something with cryptos, they increase in value over time, whereas your fiat currency, it's not money, because I don't call it money, because how can something be called money decrease in value over a period of time? It's surely meant to rise in value, no?
Yeah.
So with that, I just started to learn and learn and learn and learn, and, knowing the difference between what blockchain does, and that's essentially a ledger of a written record of transactions or records being made. So say, as a use case example, you want to vote in an election or something, you could cast your vote in a public blockchain and your vote would be registered, and it's incorruptible, can't be changed, can't be erased, it's lodged there forever.
Yeah.
So that's one idea. And from there, I started to, follow pricings of different things right across the board until I found the crypto market was the one for me. And I, saw Bitcoin at £40, or like, that's just like $60 at the time, like consciously. And I thought I'd missed the boat, and I thought I'd left it or something. I'm thinking, yeah, I won't get much higher than that. But then 2 weeks later, and I found it's $100. Thinking, holy moly, okay, there might be something in this. And within a matter of months, went to 1,000, and then it dipped massively again. And I was telling people, like, I was crying at them, saying, like, you've got to invest in this. This is the thing of the future. And this must have been 2013, 2014. And, 7 years later, we find ourselves at $60,000. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. And this is something I've written about for Dazed as well. And I remember one line I wrote, will Bitcoin ever get to $1 million? It's just like, well, maybe not, but who cares? I'm in it for it's a ride worth riding, I suppose. But, would you rule it out, given it's at 60,000 right now in 10, maybe not in, foreseeable, but maybe in 10 years from now, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. And how would you say, like, if someone wants to get involved, like from the start, like if someone like me wants to start getting into this, what would you tell me? Like, what should I do? Like, how do I do this? Like, how do I start? What would you tell me is a starting point?
First of all, I should begin by saying that firstly, I am not a financial advisor. I do not give financial advice. So I just want to get that completely out of the way right now.
All right. So I just forget that. I mean,
but I will say this.
Yeah.
I will say is that from my perspective, from what I did, do all the research you can. Never ever invest more than you can afford. Open a wallet. Go to an exchange that sells cryptocurrencies of your choice, and there are loads and loads and loads of them. I wouldn't say go for Bitcoin. I would say diversify your portfolio as much as you can. I would also add that you should be wary of the risks involved, because it's a highly, highly volatile market. You should be prepared for 30% or much, much more gains in one day, and just as much to lose in the same space as well. So develop a thick skin, and a very, very strong stomach.
Okay, cool. That's really good advice. I'm definitely taking that on board, because I think it's something that I want to get into. I want to learn about it. I want to be able to understand this a bit more. And speaking of things I want to understand more as well, and you're also well informed about this, is NFTs. So yeah. Same thing. I mean, it's a trending topic at the moment. There's a big buzz around it. Can you explain it as you would to a 5-year-old for the people watching? I mean, I know what I know about this, but I would love to hear your thoughts on NFTs.
Yeah, I'd love to. So NFTs are non-fungible tokens. They are a tokenized digital asset, which are not cryptocurrencies because they are something you purchase with cryptocurrencies. So it's like saying you're paying cryptocurrency for a particular object, if that makes sense. But that one object there's only one of it. So imagine it being like paying a concert ticket as a NFT. And the reason I say that is because an NFT is like a concert ticket with your name on it, your seat number, your row. So it could only belong to you. Now, there are, of course, a lot of critics who say, how can digital art that's not real, be worth so much? But, scarcity creates like enormous value. It always has, always will. I've got friends who are very, very early into this space, and, lest we forget, CryptoKitties, which was like the first, NFT, and ever since then, it seems to, come to a head, and we're now in 2021, it seems to have exploded almost. So, but it's interesting to find in the long term what the other use cases there might be. So there's already, trading cards. There's NBA trading cards now.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen those.
I have, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I heard a great example regarding NFTs, which I think makes so much sense. It's basically the Mona Lisa painting. It exists in Paris. Everyone goes to see it, but yet there's so many printed versions of it. If you have the printed version, why are you so fascinated by the original one? Everyone's going to see the original one, whereas technically it's literally there's the painting and there's the print version. Like, you look at them, if you put them on a wall far away, you'd almost be shocked to see that there's no difference in some ways. That's no insults to people who are painters or artists, but the general public would never know the difference. So I assume that. So that's why I'm saying, like, it makes sense if there's a digitalized one unique version of something, whether it's an image, a basketball card, or whatever. I mean, people can go and print it, but the original one belongs to that one individual, and these things go up in value with time. So yeah.
Yeah, completely. It works the same way. And, this is something that could benefit all industries. In fact, I will go on record as saying this could potentially save the music industry.
That was my next question. Because I'm very curious to know how you think this is going to impact the music industry. I agree with you, but I want to know how you think it's going to impact the music industry, and how do you see it happening?
This will depend on a number of factors. One of them being, how quick will they be to act? Because the music business is notoriously slow when it comes to emerging and developing technologies. They always like other industries and other, businesses take the lead, But, gaming, there's no doubt gaming is going to benefit enormously from this. Enormously. You can't tell me that, cryptocurrencies and that kickstarted this stuff was like specifically for NFTs and, trading cards and rewards is not going to benefit gaming somehow. Yeah. You mean to tell me they're not going to make enough enormous riches from this? Are you mad? Of course, it's a no-brainer. So music could absolutely take the lead. Imagine as an example, like tickets sold as NFTs, like I was saying to you before. Not even that. Forms of artwork, limited edition, NFT vinyl. People are going to be sick, me saying this, but imagine something like you have 1,000 records that were pressed, but now you have them as a form of NFT.
Yeah.
Why couldn't that work?
I'm wondering, because we know that these are digitalized pieces of media that are being turning into NFTs basically. And I'm wondering if songs are going to become NFTs, because if they are, and if this starts happening and artists start realizing that they can make a lot more money doing this is going to change the game big time. Because I think it was, I think it was Kings of Leon or someone recently.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, they what was it? They dropped an album entirely as an NFT or something like that, and they made that.
They did, yeah, they did. And not there've been other DJs. Was it Steve Aoki who released a particular song as an NFT or something? I can't remember if it was him or another DJ, but I do know that that his sold for something like $11 million or something of that figure. Yeah. And let's not forget, a couple of weeks ago, according to the New York Times, there was a collage of 5,000 portraits in one that sold for $69 million.
Yeah,
we're just at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm really curious about this, because I do believe that this specifically, this is going to change the game of all media everywhere, like music, movies, whatever you name it, books. It's going to change everything. It's going to change absolutely everything.
Yeah, although I kind of understand the critics though, saying that how can you buy something that's not real? I mean, I'm asking you now, would you pay something that you can't really kind of touch per se? Are you within the kind of physical realm, or is it kind of a case where you're open to buying things that are virtual?
I'm open to the idea on the basis that I know that someone else can buy it, meaning I would buy it not for the pride of saying I own this and that and whatever, but I would buy it on the basis that someone is going to pay for this, like a huge amount at some point in the future. And this is where the interesting part is on NFTs. You have people who are obsessively buying things, and that number is getting really, really big. So the number of people who are buying these things. So that's where it's interesting for me. I mean, for me, I'm obviously, I say this as someone who doesn't consider myself to be a materialistic person, in the sense that I don't like owning objects. I don't, other than like few little things that matter to me, like football shirts and whatever. But other than that, I'm not someone who likes, I don't care about cars or bling bling or any of that. I don't care of any material things. So for me, it just makes business sense to buy something that's digital and then wait on it, and then eventually it blows up and someone else buys it, someone else takes it off you. So I would personally, would you? I'm sure you would anyway, because you're vouch for it.
Yeah, I mean, I've bought a few already. I've bought where I started out was I bought a couple of domain names. Okay. This is inadvertent, almost by accident. It's like the .com craze all over again. It's just like 1995 all over again.
Yeah.
So you can buy domain names like, I don't know, luxuryboattravel.crypto or something. Something to, I don't know, luxury Australian travel and stuff. And one day someone picks it up saying, hey, they've got a business with that name. I wonder how much he wants for it, sort of thing. So it's like that all over again. So domain names was where I started. And I also, I'm trying to remember what else I bought. It's not just that. And there have been other things as well. But the one thing, whilst I try to remember what else it is I bought, I'm sorry about this, my memory is completely shot, is that here's a scenario. Imagine kids having, no longer having trading cards, but instead on their phones or something, have NFTs where they're just trading on their phone saying, I'll give you this card for that card.
Yeah, that's the future. I mean, it's weird for us today because we can't visualize it, but I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, I can't see why it won't happen, honestly. All kids have phones today, so
time will tell. It's kind of, either that or showing our age somewhat,
Listen, I'm not falling for that age thing. I mean, I keep myself fit. I don't like this age.
Just as well, man. Just as well.
Yousif, I think we're good on time. So just want to say thank you very much for being here, for
for having
participating,
me.
and we'll catch up very, very soon. Let's stay on after this call and just chat a bit before the England game starts. So thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me that. No, yeah. Thank you for having me, and I love talking about these subjects. And so, I'm more than happy to talk and shoot the shot with NFTs and blockchain.
Cool.
And crypto.
All right, nice one. Let's stay on a bit. Let me turn off the recording. Thanks, man. Cheers.